Senate that will be coming in, making their way. Minority Leader Demapon. Thank you all for the opportunity to come up. This is the Pacific Century Fellows. As you know already, they are a group of mid to senior level executives and members of the public and private sector. I want to point out that Congresswoman Layla Staffler is an alumnus, as well as Joe and Joe Tyrone and Minority Leader Demapon and Congresswoman Bavalta. We have a few members actually within the House House and future Senate. But yes, our late member, sorry, 2014. Yeah, 2014, the original, the pioneer class. Ivan Blanco was a member of the pioneer class. But we are here to have basically just a casual conversation with the 2021 PCF members here, and I want to open it up and provide for open dialogue, basically, Speaker.
Thank you, Alex. As always, it's a pleasure to have you all here at your house. Just know that you can come up here anytime, other than this setting of a presentation to share your concerns. I am Speaker Edmund Villagomez, and I've actually had the history of entertaining the PCF class since 2014. And one of the best ways we come up with ideas and to tackle issues is, outreach with the public and folks like yourself, sharing the concerns that you see in the community and in the different areas that you work in our community as well. I like to also approach this in a way, like Alex said, open dialogue. I think that's one thing the members would like to share with all of you as well. So good morning, and I'll go ahead and I'll allow the Senate President to give his opening remarks. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Buenos dias, and Mr. Alex Blanc, and to, of course, the members of the legislature. And most importantly, the cohort for this year's PCF. I've followed you guys actually since its inception, and I think it's actually a privilege to actually be sitting alongside two of your previous PCF members, and as what was mentioned earlier by our good speakers, it is our duty here to have a conversation with the community, and we appreciate the concept, the platform is informal, where we can hopefully get as much as Q&A as possible. I'm certain that most of you have pretty much get a general understanding of the entire spectrum of the CNMI right now, and you guys get involved. So wherever you're at, private sector, public sector, let's work together. Okay? And I offer the same message as that of the speaker, that we share the same sentiment. Please visit us at the Senate. Okay, thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. Before I move forward, I'd like to introduce the members that are present here in the gallery. Of course, you just met the Senate President, Jude Hofschneider, and to his left is also a former PCF, Representative Layla Staffler, who chairs the Committee on Education. And to her left is another PCF alumni, the pioneering class, like you just mentioned, Leader Angel Demapon. And to his left is our floor leader, Representative Ralph Yumo. And across is our PUTC chairman, Representative Richard Lizama. Just entering the chamber is our chairwoman for Health and Welfare, Representative Tina Sablan. And to her left is Representative Vicente Camacho, who chairs the Federal and Foreign Affairs Committee. And to his left is, again, another PCF alumni, Representative Sheila Babalta, who chairs the Natural Resources. And to her left is Representative Danita Yangtamay, who chairs the Commerce and Tourism and Cannabis Committee. Thank you. And if we'll proceed, Representative Leila Staffler.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you all for joining us here today. The Pacific Century Fellows is definitely something that's really near and dear to many of our hearts. We see the importance and value of getting opportunities like this to see the operations of our island systems, how they work together and how they sometimes don't work together. You get such an interesting perspective, and you even work in those areas too, so you get a lot out of this program. So I'm so glad that it's been able to continue on as it is today. I think it's very clever how you named it. Good job. I really like that. One thing I really loved about my experience in PCF was how all of these presentations that you see, all these great minds trying to work together to solve our island problems. Sometimes I thought, well, why don't they just talk to each other? And then I see our chairman, Jerry Tan, working together with our governor and creating this Governor's Economic Council. And I see that is like PCF on steroids. And I think that's exactly what we need to really, look at the big picture of all the systems and how they work together. And the next best thing is seeing the new leaders that will be coming to replace us one day. I really look forward to seeing who among you will be sitting here next too. So thank you for coming. Thank you all for hosting and sharing your stuff with our great new fellows today. And I look forward to hearing and seeing what you guys will accomplish, especially your community service project. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Staffler. And yes, again, coming together and working together definitely is progress in our community. Now I'd like to recognize a leader, Representative Angel Demapan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to the PCF cohort that's here, Jerry, Merle, Justine, and Alex, and um, Ron, Ray, Ray. Good morning to everybody that's here, and welcome to your house chamber. I'm sitting here and I'm being struck by a commonality that I think we need to pay proper tribute to. We are a 20-member house minus one, and you are a PCF cohort minus one. So I'd like to pay proper tribute to our recent losses, um, Minority Leader Ivan Blanco and your cohort fellow Hedwig Hofschneider. It was a tough time for PCF in that last month because they both passed away a few days apart. So I just want to honor them just for a few seconds of a moment of silence. That being said, as a member of the inaugural cohort, um, I share the same excitement as colleague Leila and all of our colleagues here for the development, the leadership development opportunities that you guys have under the Pacific Century Fellows. In 2014, I was in the cohort and I was a candidate for my first run for office. And I was able to use the feedback and the inspiration that we experience in the cohort through our monthly sessions and through our networking to help me build that campaign and the vision for eventually what would have been my first term in office. Today, the cohort or PCF should be proud to have produced one, two, three, four members of the house so far. And, we look at you guys, and there's a whole bunch of leaders that are sitting in your cohort that we can see coming to the House or the Senate and even to the executive branch in the future. So harness the knowledge, all the knowledge that you can get from this experience. We've never had a fellows program like this ever. And to see its continuous annual growth under the leadership of the PCF family, and the vision of Jerry Tan really to work with Mufi Hanneman to bring this program to the Marianas is a really great opportunity for our young and emerging leaders in our government. So and in the private sector. So I think be proud to be a part of this organization, and take everything you learn from it, so that we can do as Mufi's maxim says, leave this place better than we found it, right? So thank you again, and congratulations on your journey. Hopefully, if travel protocols ease, you get to experience the same capstone travel as the previous classes. Thank you and welcome. Good morning.
Thank you, Representative Angel. Before we move on with questions, I'd like to open the floor for any members who'd like to give some brief remarks or share just some of the issues or bills that you're working in your committee. Representative Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, Mr. Sablan for hosting this today. The hop in the front. And first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Jerry Tan for having this group of people. I mean, I'm surprised by looking at their faces. I know Mr. Grow is doing something good. The man in front here, Mr. Mendiola? Tenorio, I'm sorry. No, you're working for CHC, correct? Okay, so I'm sorry. But anyway, I've seen a lot of them here, came from different various of organization. One from the NMC. I think there's an impact to the community for you guys are doing. And maybe perhaps I'm gonna start telling my children to return back home and do something for the good for the people. So I just wanna say thank you for having this organization, and you all came from various position. Hopefully that someday, like what others were saying, you can be here too and do much better for the community. So thank you for the job well done. Thank you. I hear back.
Thank you, Chairman Lizama. Any other members? Okay, Rep Sheila.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and welcome. If there's no objection with the members and with the class, I'd really like to invite them to come and sit
Yes,
here.
please.
I've
Actually,
counted. I think there's 11 of you, and there's 9 seats, including up there. Maybe we can have the youngest sit in the speaker seat.
no objection.
But I think that will encourage
yes,
dialogue.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Awesome. Come on in. Come
Yeah.
on into your chamber. Sarge, if you can please assist, I think we'll need 2 extra chairs. And maybe we can put the 2 extra chairs just on the sides here or scoot them in. And those are my remarks. Thank you very much. So we have 2 seats. We have 2 seats up there, and then we have the loose chairs. Yes, thank you. Come so you can see how our chairs really look and how they need to be replaced.
I don't think mine needs to be replaced. But.
Yep, we have 2 seats up here.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay, I'll come sit with you so you're not alone.
All right. Yeah. All right. Thanks. I guess this is the part of the program where, as I mentioned earlier, we like to have this in informal, almost conversation type in terms of Q&A. So, unless any more members want to share a little bit with what they're working on in their committees, I'd like to open up the floor to the fellows for questions and answers. Recognize Can I like co-representative Tenorio recognize Lee?
Yeah, let's not go there yet. No, I think over conversations we've kind of discussed the abundance of cash flow that has been coming in into the CNMI within the last few years. We've also recognized that there are short terms between every election period between legislators, with different platforms, different plans, and proceedings. But at the end of the day, we focus on one thing, which is the people of the CNMI as far as the development of that. Is there anything that we'll be seeing out of the legislature or the House as far as some sort of comprehensive working life document to kind of supersede every type of position, like whether you're not, God forbid, if you run for re-election or not, and somebody else comes in? Is there some sort of way, or what's the solution or the working goal as far as maintaining a direction of the House and the Senate, if any?
Any member want
That's all.
to take a crack at that, or?
Let me
Okay,
try.
recognize Representative Camacho.
Yeah, first of all, thank you. You know what? I'm very proud to actually meet you guys. I've not heard of this program. Yeah, I've been gone a long time, but this is nice knowing that there are people out there that are getting ready to take the lead. Yeah, so let me just give you this a shot. But with your question, if there is an infrastructure plan and it's extended out long and actually lock it in there, make it law that once there's a set program, not necessarily a program, but projects like the roads, let's say it's 10-year project, that should be done in 10 years or extended if needed, but something that we can lock in, and not and people that come in, new people come in, can't change it, right? Locked in until it's all done. Infrastructures, buildings, roads, everything that's important for the CNMI, schools, long-term projects. Lock it in, make a bill, lock it in, make sure nothing changes, and we go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Recognize Representative Tina Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to all of you. Welcome to the House. Thank you so much for your presence here, and I'm looking forward to this conversation today and to answer, or to attempt to answer your question, Mr. Tenorio. So if I'm understanding the question, you're asking how do we establish plans for the development of the CNMI that transcend the short terms of the legislature? Is that correct? Okay. Well, in terms of planning, a lot of the planning functions of this government actually fall on the executive branch, and the legislature's role is really in appropriating the funds to support longer term plans, right? And you'll see like especially I'm thinking in terms of like the appropriations we do at the local delegation level for infrastructure projects in particular. A lot of the appropriations bills that you will see have language that specify that these funds shall be without fiscal year limitations. So they don't just like lapse and go right back into the main funds of the government to be reappropriated again and again. Although reappropriations again and again do happen in the legislature, and money gets moved around sometimes, just depending as needs change and as priorities change. But you may have already met with the fairly new Office of Planning and Development. That's led by Kodep Okumoro, and they are getting ready to formally adopt, I guess, and finalize the comprehensive development plan for the Commonwealth. And that even just the process of developing that plan took a lot of consultation with all different agencies, all different stakeholders. They were even still accepting comments on that very comprehensive plan, covering everything from healthcare to roads infrastructure to economic development. One thing that we inserted in the House budget for the Office of Planning and Development to consider as well is the future of the gaming industry for the CNMI, whether that should be part of our comprehensive plan. And in a perfect ideal world, that comprehensive plan does transcend the short terms, not just of the legislature, but whoever the governor is at any given time, right? It should transcend his term too, because a lot of these plans do tend to take years to realize, right? But plans are also meant to be living documents, and they're supposed to evolve as the needs and priorities of communities change. So there's a balance that has to be struck. But I would look to the legislation that we enact, that is meant to uh, provide direction and guidance for these long-term plans. And it's really up to the leaders and to the community to ensure that those plans are followed through. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tina. And yes, one of the issues too is what, even with 2 years, right? As elected officials, we're not really beholden to that plan. So it's good to have a working body, like for example, the Governor's Council on Economic Advisors. And one of the first laws to break in the 22nd legislature was authored by Representative Angel Demapan, the CEDA bill, which also incorporated different amendments from all the members. And there it is. And then we also have a bill recently that we passed accompanying that bill. I think it's up at the Senate now, and we're looking forward to that. So, and then it's also hard to, I don't think we can legislate something where we tell like the next incoming member that this is what you're going to be doing. So those are some of the issues that when it comes to these plans that it makes it a little hard. Like Representative Tina Sablan said, it's a living document. It's meant to evolve. It's meant to change as the time goes forward. But with this OPD too, they're looking at the a more comprehensive plan covering everything, like Representative Tina Sablan said, from zoning to healthcare, etc. Thank you. Recognize Representative Staffler.
I've also found in my freshman year that a lot of the long-term stuff that you might not be able to find because we can't really just say what you have to do for the people who come after you. The community will come and tell you. They will be the ones to really remind you, like, don't forget the watershed. And then you have to backtrack and find what was the previous history about it and learn. And what I've found and really value is the collaborative efforts of everyone on this floor to maintain a lot of these projects. So like a lot of the work that I started with was kind of connected to things that Representative Blanco had also been doing. So I had like a former, someone who knew what was going on in that area, and we can reach out. So collaboration is a really, really important piece so that you can work with the agencies and also work with the people who were here before you to find out what was happening and then continue from there. Because some projects like the watershed are actually like 14 years old, and you think it's done because the big major problem isn't there anymore, the main flooding area that was at the bottom of the Kegman Road. But the final last two phases, which will really put the icing on the cake for our farmers, for our water, our oceans, and keeping them from getting too much silt and stuff, that's not yet done. And so those are things that we do need to maintain, because those are long-term projects that are really important for our community. And if you don't know it, someone will tell you. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Staffler. Chairman, if we can let the Senate President and then, okay, recognize President.
I just want to take a moment to, and thank you for that question, Mr. Tenorio. A lot of we tend to be reactionary instead of being responsive when in terms we deal with the issues. Most of us know over the last maybe 7-8 years, we've dealt with unforeseen natural disasters that give ways for all the leaders, all the community to tackle first. And that being said, fronting a lot of our revenue, our cash to respond to that, and then we turn around and try to recover from. But the unfortunate part of it is it takes a longer period of time for us to recover from, not needing to get into details. And then the next big thing happened, and then the following big thing happened. So it really depends on how do we react to it. I'm sorry, to respond to it. And I think everyone in this room, we're walking that right now. Most recent, and thankfully, we are part of the United States Political Union, because without that, I don't know where we're going to be with all this infusion of money. But what about moving forward? how can we be self-sustaining? Maybe not just us here, but future leaders like yourselves. The work doesn't stop today. We need to be sustainable in such a way whereby we can survive um, with what we have. I'll just tell you on the onset right now, we're more or less speaking, maybe almost $200 million, maybe $180 million of government operations with a $98 million of appropriation that we just passed. So go figure, right? And then you have the infusion of what we all know, the ARPA funds that is going to be able to for us to sustain us. But what about what happens in 2023 or 4 or 5 for that matter? What as a unit? What are we doing as a business, as stakeholders, not just the public office, but even with the community? And I also want to echo what was mentioned earlier about the GCEA. Because of that, we are able to craft out sound policies that we're passing here in hopes that we can get the return on in effect in the next couple of years, if not faster. So those are the things that we need to think about moving forward. Most of you guys know, and you probably heard it on social media. I introduced a very sensitive legislation and initiative, which have since been filed. It's about our land tenureship. It's about Article 12. And the reason why I did that, and I did not reach out to any other groups, I wanted to see how the community is going to react to it based on the lay of the land right now. Because number one, I still believe that as your owner of your private land, I'm a firm believer that no one really can tell you what to do with it. You know what's best for it, right? Number two is um, anywhere, even in as far as near as Guam, if you look at their land tenureship, it really transcends to how sustainable they can be, even if you shut down their borders with pandemic. And I stand corrected, but I corrected myself again by calling on them. And when pandemic hit, a lot of though the businesses were hampered, but a lot of our public agency employees in Guam, they're actually able to be sustained. Us here, we had to shut down. We had to furlough people. We have to do all that. So it's almost so. I guess the bigger part of what I did is I wanted to get the sentiment of people. Are we really ready to get to the next step? Um, and it's obvious. Majority of our people that came out on the hearing did not. They want to remain status quo, but don't let that stop us from thinking the next thing, right? And then it's you guys that hopefully we can guide the leaders that are elected officials to get to the next step. But to yield back, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that we need to start planning what's going to happen in the next 2-3 years. This is the time to share ideas, and with the GCEA and some of the legislations that our good representative Angel de Mopan have introduced, that's a start. And also being from Tinian, I always have to put that out. I think we can all work together with our folks from Rhoda, how we can be a contributing member in the recovery period. And then I'll maybe share that if we have some time. Thank you.
Thank you. Recognize Representative Richard Lizama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Most of it was already covered by some of them, but the most important here is execution. Execution with those plans. We have problems, and we're going to foresee more problems because we're going to have labor problems. And so even if we have plans, like my term is probably this is going to be my last one, and I've seen a lot of bills that's been enacted and appropriate funds for projects. For example, as you mentioned about the watershed, the pathway, lightning of Cagman pathway. I don't think I'm going to see those. And even the road they are planning to build or repair from Salampiao to Micro Beach or to the American Memorial Park, they're supposed to start next month. We're lacking with labors, and I don't see that the plan will be there, and the problem again will be how do you shift those money to another project? We need to protect them. Once they put them money on that plan, they need to be protected. That's when you guys come in and say, look, don't move that money around. As a PUTC chairman, I'm very concerned with the fundings that have been shifting around. And, we're not going to get anything done, especially when we don't have enough labor in our islands. So hopefully the schools will start training people on construction areas, not only to, gear them toward college. We need manpowers. And that was a good question, sir. Thank you very much. I hear back.
Thank you, Representative Richard Lizama. Floor is still open, fellows. Questions? Senate President?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I maybe that's something that your group wanna just tap into. Just don't contact Secretary 62 go somewhere. There's actually a 5-year land use plan right now for the CNMI that is subject for review every 5 years. That's by law. So it's a great accomplishment for the department because that would mean our Bible for us to to plan ahead. DPL, Department of Public Land. So I'm certain that they're on the website somewhere. But if you guys can reach out to the agency, get a copy of that and just look at it. That'll tell you how much public land available in the CNMI, how much private land, and that would kind of probably help us with our planning. No, just thought I mentioned that. Thank you, Speak.
Thank you, Senate President. Floor is still open.
Question.
Yes, recognize.
Did I miss introductions of the fellows? And did everybody say like where they're working and what their areas are? Did that
Oh no,
happen already?
we didn't start with that.
Okay.
We
Maybe
were
we could do that.
you know we do this every time, and we're very pressed with time. So one thing I was hoping to get out of this was the open conversation like we had with questions and answers. But if
Yeah, just briefly, if we could just
okay.
go around the
All right,
table
let's
and-
start with
yeah.
Madame Speaker up here. Please introduce yourself, ma'am.
Hi. Thank you so much for having us this morning. We appreciate you taking the time to meet with us. I'm Dr. Ria Nathrani. I'm a 7th grade teacher at Hopwood Middle School. I teach computer literacy, and I'm really excited to be in this conversation and seeing how I can further help promote these issues in my students as well, so that they can think about what's going on in our community.
Thank you, and we'll start to the left of Representative Angel Demapan.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Nadine Deleon Guerrero, Chairwoman for the CNMI Cannabis Commission. And then I'll just pass it along for the sake of time.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Julie from Canoa Resort Executive Assistant.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ana Mendiola, and I am a counselor at Saipan Southern High School, and I am also on the board for the NMTI, the Northern Marianas Technical Institute. Thank you.
Good morning again. My name is Lee Tenori. I'm currently the Executive Director for the Saipan Chamber of Commerce and as well as a board member of the Northern Humanities Council.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nicole Babalta, and I am in a different capacity today. I am the Consumer Sales Manager at Docomo Pacific. I am also on the State Workforce Board. Thank you.
Anyways, my name is Billy Grow. It's okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is John Saludez. I am the managing director of HBR International. We are a general contractor serving in Saipan for more than 30 years now. So we are a local, small general contractor on Saipan. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Annette Plata Vega. I'm with the public school system, and I'm the project director for the state longitudinal data system.
Morning, everybody. Name is Tom Deleon Guerrero. I work for GHD as an engineer. I'm the vice chairman of the Commonwealth Utilities Corporation, and I run my own private businesses.
All right, thank you, and nice to meet you all. And Dr. Ria, you have the floor.
Thank you. I had a question regarding the funding that we were discussing earlier. And we had this discussion this morning as well about a rainy day fund. Is there any way to promote that within our government and maybe create legislation that would require the executive branch to have a sort of a savings of funds that would be needed or be used during emergency situations?
Members, I can share a little history. We did, I think even former speaker, I think it was former speaker Ralph Demapan, and maybe a few other members prior to that, they did draft legislation regarding a rainy day fund. Um, on the surface it sounds really easy, but I think it's like they say, the devil's in the details and how you put it all together. So um, I don't, based on my recollection, I don't think it ever got out to the out of the committee. Not because we did not support it. I think it's putting it together to make sure that it follows through properly with it without any loophole. But yes, that idea has been entertained and definitely worth looking into. Right now, it's maybe that's something that we can put in place for the future. But I know that with the infusion of the ARPA and all that, we cannot be spending money that way and putting it aside for a rainy day. Any other member want to take a recognize Representative Tina Sabla?
Yeah, thank you. I, I I agree that it would make sense to have a rainy day fund established for the government for future disasters, future unforeseen events that would affect government operations and public services in this whole community. That said, I was thinking back to a presentation. I think it was like a couple of years ago with maybe it was the members of the USDA graduate school. They were from Interior, from Insular Affairs, and one that question came up, right? And one consideration that is a pretty big consideration is, does it make sense, and is it really practical for a government, at least in like the immediate term, when we are still faced with shortfalls in funding. I'm not talking about like the federal funds that are coming in, right? But not everything can be funded with federal funds. There are restrictions on those funds as well, including with the American Rescue Plan Act, right? And when we have like these humongous liabilities, like to the settlement fund, for example, uncompensated care costs and medical referral costs that we are chronically finding ourselves in shortfalls to meet those obligations. And as a practical matter, can we really afford to set aside 10% of the projected resources for the government for the year when we know that there are these other very significant liabilities and obligations that we are struggling to meet, right? And when there is this deficit every year, at least for the last 5 years. And so there was no resolution to that that conversation when we had everybody around the table discussing the fiscal health of this government. But I think that the infusion of funds that we are seeing, I mean, this is like unprecedented, over $500 million actually, that we're going to be seeing for the next couple of years. That does provide us some breathing room. It does buy us some time to figure out how we right the financial health of this government in a more sustainable way once these federal funds run out, right, in a couple of years. But we have some time, and we should start thinking very seriously and planning for these rainy days. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tina Sablana. I now recognize Representative Angel Demapan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And just to clarify that the Speaker Demapan bill became Public Law 20-82. However, it's kind of a hybrid reserve fund, not necessarily a rainy day fund. What it did is it earmark 5% of casino gross revenue after the $22 million has been expended for retirees. It earmarked 5% of the remaining casino gross revenue, and it was supposed to go into a fund that can only be appropriated after 2028. So that was for the reason to build up the fund up to 2028. Unfortunately, the industry is where it's at today, and there is no 5% of the excess to put into the reserve fund. So there is a reserve fund that exists, but we've yet to reach that point in the law that says after this X amount of money, then you put money into the account. So the structure exists, but it's only for casino gross revenue. And then there has been discussions for general fund revenue into a rainy day fund, but that's kind of a follow up to what Chairwoman Tina is saying: is how do you have a rainy day fund with continued shortfalls that have not been met over several fiscal years? So I guess in order to get to the rainy day fund, we have to take care of outstanding obligations that are still out there. But yes, there's a law, but it only pertains to one funding source that's not available at this time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, colleague, for that clarification. Maybe that's why I thought it didn't go anywhere, because it's not being funded. Yeah. I remember kind of, discussing with our former speaker before back then, and just slept my mind. Yeah. Recognize Nicole.
Thank you. And I may recall this. I please correct me if I'm wrong. In the current budget as it is, each department has to allocate 1% towards OPA. Is that correct? Will it be most departments? Will it be hard to like tag on a 0.5% towards a rainy day fund in the current budget as it in its structure?
Go ahead, recognize Representative Tina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would note that it has been hard to enforce even the 1% for OPA. We've had issues, especially seeing enforcement with the autonomous agencies. Although, the central government has been a lot more diligent about remitting the 1% to OPA. But what should happen is all the agencies and departments that are required by law to remit that 1% to OPA should be doing so. And then whatever is unencumbered, the unencumbered balance at the end of the year by Constitution, should be remitted back to the central government for reappropriation by the legislature. Because there are a number of agencies that routinely fail to make these remittances, there is no such unencumbered balance that gets remitted back, right? But that could theoretically, if that law was enforced on all of these agencies, that could theoretically be a source for a rainy day fund in the future. But that's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep Tina. And then that goes back also to what Representative Demapan said, is amending the law. All right, recognize Thomas.
Sure. Uh, I'm a firm believer that the CUC, right? I'm vice chair of CUC and CHC is like the beating heart of the CNMI. Yet, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that it gets the attention that it needs. We have Power Plant 1 that's in dire need of changes. Actually, we should demolish it and build a brand new power plant. If we have 150, $160 million, sure. And then same thing for CHC, right? They're in a shortfall with the CUC and paying some bills, but how can we blame them when they have this, I forget what it's called, but the uncompensated care, right? We have that program. So the conversation that I was hoping that we can get today is how can we focus really and put our concentration into these two huge agencies that can really take care of the CNMI moving forward. Without CUC, without the power goes down. Everybody obviously can't sustain a generator, throughout the whole year, whatever it is. without power, the students don't have light, whatever it is. We have these issues. I'm sure all of you guys have know what the issues are. Same thing is if the power goes out and somebody gets sick, yet our facility for them to go to is completely down, or they don't have the resources. That's the only reason they can't save a life, is because they don't have the money to save that, right? Because we don't put money. So I guess here the conversation every single year, every other year, every term, every governor's term, they always say, okay, we're gonna try to help CUC, we're gonna try to help CHCC. And they think that giving just enough money is enough to sustain both these agencies. Um, so I wanted to see really what your ideas are and the plans to really put our foot down and say, we are going to take care of CHCC. We are going to take care of CUC moving forward. To be pretty blunt about CUC is that, obviously you guys know that we have a Greco power. um, Initially, it was just supposed to be a backup power, but slowly, as the year and a half has gone by, when we first picked up Agreco, is our engines started to fail. One by one, it's like a domino effect, and so now we have Agreco as helping a portion of our demand power. If we're trying to get back up in the community, right, with the tourists coming in and everything, and all the businesses picking up, we don't have that capacity at the moment, right? Um, so that's one side. And then on CHC side is, what if they don't have the facilities to maintain whatever's going on with the health system, and when knock on wood that nothing happens, and our COVID restrictions stay in place. But if something were to happen, are we going to be reactive, as Senator Hofschneider stated? We have to stop being in that position. So I just wanted to get a discussion from our leaders here today, and how can we really get our focus? I understand there's so many problems here in the city, but how can we get our focus on these two big agencies that really we depend on, uh, for the livelihood of the CNMI? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, recognize Representative Tina Sabla.
I can address the health perspective. So I chair the Health and Welfare Committee, and actually by law, that the enabling statutes for both CHCC and CUC direct those agencies to become self-sustaining, right, to the greatest extent possible. The challenge with CHCC is, they run the healthcare system for the entire Commonwealth, including the hospital, and because they receive funds for Medicare and Medicaid, and they are required by law as well, local law, to accept anybody that comes in needing healthcare. They can't turn anybody away, regardless of insurance status, regardless of income, right? So, there are these mandates for CHCC to become financially self-sustaining, or at least stable, and then at the same time to provide care to anybody that needs it, right? And both those mandates are really important, but they do come at odds with each other. So what we're doing in the legislature, one of the programs that we're examining very closely and just pre-filed legislation this week is reforming the medical referral program, because that has been a big black hole for the government for many, many years. There's never been enabling legislation ever in the history of the program since like trust territory days. And we worked with CHCC as well as with other stakeholders who provided input during public hearings that the committee held back in May on all three islands, and with the Attorney General's office to get the AG's comments on this legislation. And so, CHCC they agreed to accept responsibility for the medical referral program, but with protections from financial liabilities of the program that have been incurred thus far, right? So all the previous liabilities is millions of dollars in like promissory notes and debts and previous contracts that have been executed over the years, those remain with the central government, with the office of the governor. And we need to figure out how we're going to deal with that, right? But going forward, CHCC would agree under this legislation, if enacted, to accept responsibility for both off-island and inter-island medical referrals, to establish the parameters by which people would be able to access medical. We're rebranding it. It's called medical travel assistance. So for healthcare services that aren't available on island, for people in need who meet the requirements that would be established by regulation, what kind of assistance would they be eligible for? So CHCC would have the authority to provide those parameters, right? And then and then and then what we're hoping for is that one other protection, I guess, that's in place is that it's really up to the legislature and the governor to identify the funds to appropriate for this program, and when that runs out, it would be up to the legislature and the governor to identify the funds to supplement it, right? But what hopefully should happen is, as CHCC assumes responsibility for the program, examines the books, examines past practices, and looks at the reforms, and they do have the capacity, they have the people on staff right now who are able to do that, to look at the data and figure out where we can cut costs and streamline all these expenses, then we'll be able to get a better handle on like what are the true costs of this program, how much money is needed, how can we avoid these like multi-million dollar shortfalls that we've been seeing year after year after year, right? And it wouldn't fall to CHCC to have to assume responsibility for a big black hole. Like it would be a shared responsibility with the legislature and the administration to make sure that we are meeting those needs. And when we come to the end of that funding, then services would need to stop until we find additional funding. So that legislation has been pre-filed, and that's just one small part of, well, it's a big part of our healthcare program, right? But the other part is investing in healthcare facilities on island to reduce the need for medical referral. And CHCC has actually done a phenomenal job of expanding services and stabilizing finances with all the federal funds that they've received so far through Medicaid, through the Affordable Care Act. The American Rescue Plan Act should also result in additional funding to CHCC. And they've been able to triple medical staff and improve outpatient services and expand services on Tinian and Rhoda, including specialty services. They're moving towards federally qualified health centers, right? So there's been a lot of progress and a lot of investment, and and that's what happens with consistent and reliable funding, right? But a lot of it has been federal funding, and so it really falls to the legislature as well to um, identify local funds to make more investments in our healthcare system. And one bill that we just passed in the House was tobacco taxation that does upgrade tobacco tax laws, increase tobacco taxes, and directs a significant portion of those taxes back into our healthcare system. So there's a lot to talk about with healthcare. We are having, just for everybody's information, a health and welfare meeting on Friday. So you're more than welcome to join. You can tune in online as well, Friday at 9. Thanks.
Thank you. I recognize Representative Leila Staffler.
Thank you, Speaker. And just to piggyback on what Chairwoman Sablan was saying, I know that one of the biggest costs of healthcare is when people are going for emergency services because they haven't been doing their the regular checkups. And with the presumptive eligibility that like a majority of people took advantage of, our hospital has been seeing a lot of patients who weren't getting preventative care in the past, which contributes to the high cost that eventually overwhelms their ability to balance their budgets. And so for us to also focus on legislation that helps the preventative health, such as the tobacco tax, such as possible sugar sweetened beverage taxes that might be coming, or other sin taxes that affect our healthcare, because we, as you know, have a very sick population. If you look at our lifespans, we die so young, and it's shocking. And the reason why, it's health, it's a lifestyle diseases. And so if we also focus on legislation that helps us make better choices as people, which not everybody likes that, but it's also how we can cut down on those long term costs. And so I think of that as other ways that we can support the hospital, not just with the budgets and finance, but also with how we live as people. And so I'll just add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Staffler. I recognize Representative Angel Demapan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to make this real quick, but Mufi also like to say, be bold, be decisive, right? And in recent years, as Chairwoman Tina has mentioned, CHC has been bold and decisive in expanding their programs because for decades, we've put so much money into medical referral and no money into the hospital. I remember when we had the ribbon cutting ceremony for the dialysis center, Governor Inu said in his remarks that I'd rather be at a ribbon cutting to close down the dialysis center than to open a new one because it would have meant that our people are healthier. So I think that stakeholders just need to be bold and decisive because, like CHC, they need to continue going in that direction to offer the services and have the equipment and facilities here so we don't have to invest in medical referral. And I like the idea that there is a legislation to officially place medical referral into CHC because then they'd see firsthand how much is being spent on travel assistance and lodging and medical claims and everything, and force the corporation to, okay, maybe how much we can invest in equipment and facilities and expertise. CUC also, I know it's been several months since Agreco's been on contract, and I think at some point also we have to analyze how much longer do we spend on renting through Agreco, or using that money to buy new engines. And then, of course, we don't have all the resources to replace all the engines, but this is also an opportune time where we're at today. It's unfortunate events, but it's opportunities for us following the major disasters and the pandemic. It really puts us in a place to have all these additional resources that we would have not otherwise seen, right? So this is an opportune time for the government as a whole to really look at the resources coming in and see how we can invest in sustainability. And Senate President said it is what happens 2 years from now when the funds run out. So I think this is where we pivot. It's the perfect time to pivot and invest in long-term sustainable plans. And I'm excited to see the plan that's going to come out of OPD, and maybe we can see where we can shift resources for the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Demapan. Floor is still open. Recognize Representative Sheila.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And great question. I wanted to touch up on just the CUC aspect of it, because really that's our basic infrastructure, right? Water, sewer, power. And in this budget, the House did allocate funding to the PUC, Public Utilities Commission, just so we can have that body move and also be a part of the decision making, and all of the conversations taking place around utilities. I think since my experience being here, one thing that I've noticed is that a lot of bridges need to be built between agencies, between organizations and the community as well. And so I would highly encourage, if the commission doesn't already have a working relationship with our chairman, Richard Lizama, the chairman of, the PUTC, that would be a great place to start so that everyone's on the same page. And then when new members come in, we know where to take off. We know what meetings we should be a part of, right? What meetings did the former legislators, what kind of network did they form? What circles were they a part of, so that we can continue? And so if that's not happening already, I really do encourage that. I think, our chairman, Lizama, is very passionate about utilities and is very willing to make time to attend. But a lot of the decision makers need to connect. And so I think that's one crucial like thing that we need to start being aware of, right? Like we need to connect the decision makers, the people who are at the, like they say, the top levels that allocate funding, that make the decisions, and that have the resources, right, to really make things happen and make the changes like become a reality. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Sheila Babalta. Recognize Senate President.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Guerrero, great question. Just regarding the CUC matters, I maybe just a not necessarily an answer from, as a member, but at some point in time we were discussing back in the day about heavy fuel versus light fuel engines and all that, and I know there are elements that that decided to move forward with wherever we're at today, and I believe a lot of the cost also is on fuel. And I do know statutorily that we have to be at a certain point of a percentage of renewable energy or alternative energy, which we see all over Saipan. I appreciate the some of the businesses here that actually are utilizing our sun to manufacture some requirements to operate. So I do know that's kind of like you guys see that too as a unit, no, as you see, and try to work alongside that. But I feel that with power generation is kind of like $1 million question every time, all the time. And but I appreciate the fact that you brought it up, and this is something that we need to sit down with administration and of course the CUC to see long term wise, if what 5 year, 10 year plan, where we're going to be. Look at the law where we're at today with that, and go from there. But it's the fuel that maybe you are in a better situation to answer, to probably educate us. What are the what's the difference, or what are the advantages or disadvantages between those two um, fuel components? No, I know that there are air quality requirements with BCQ and US EPA as far as that's concerned. But it's a tricky subject that only the professionals and the agency can help guide us to support or not to support. Thank you, Speaker.
Senate President Tomas. That you want to add?
Yeah, just to add to that, thank you, Senator. So the thing there, just to not to educate, but just to inform, right, everybody that yes, there is the fuel charge there, and unfortunately, that's something that we cannot control, right? That's by MOPS, the Singapore. I think that's where we get our fuel, or at least that's where it's coming from. So in that regard, the fuel goes up in the world. We have really no control. We're too small to be able to control that. But as far as CUC's rates, we haven't raised our rates. I like to get the conversation there too. It's CUC hasn't raised our rates, I think, since 2012, 2013, right? And everything else has risen. The cost of living raises by maybe 3.5%. So if you take that 3.5% from 2012 all the way up until now, we're going to see an increase. Yet nothing at CUC, because the community will raise hell if we say, hey, we're going to raise the rates, right? But I'll take a bold move here and a bold step, and it's not necessarily the opinion of the board in whole, but it is mine. And I've asked for a cost of service study for CUC, and the reason for that is to create a raise a rate plan. And this is from the training that I got, and it's from across the U.S. where they had the public utilities come together and say what the reasons are of why public utilities fail, right? More specific in the power side. And the reason for that is because, the community will raise hell that, no, don't raise rates, don't raise it on us. And because we haven't done that in such a long time, everybody forgets that everything that we buy, from our fuel, from, anything at the offices, our trucks, our vehicles, anything that we buy, those have gone up, prices have gone up. Yet what we charge to the consumer does not go up. It only goes up in the sense that the fuel goes up, and it's a one-to-one charge, right? so what I have asked since my tenure, there at CUC is, can we have a cost of service rate plan? And in a week and a half ago, our economist.com has produced a cost of service study, and they basically told us what we have to make and what we have to charge in order to recover that. And Representative Sablan here is correct that CUC is mandated to basically break even. We're supposed to be self-sustaining. The only reason why we at the moment we're self-sustaining is because we get a lot of federal funds, just like the hospital. But if we were not to get federal funds, we'd probably be $50 million, $60 million in deficit, because that's how much funding we get from the federal side. So it's a big chunk that we get from them. My numbers might be off, don't take my word for it, but it's up there, right? And so in order, if for example, we're to wipe out all of the federal costs, where would CUC be? We would be in the hole, right? And where do we recover that? Where do we not be in the hole? Where do we balance out? It's by throwing our costs back onto ratepayers. So all in all, I mean, what I'm trying to get at is the rate here, right? Rate plan is, we've had it done. We're trying to move forward with the rate plan, but my opinion is that we do need to raise rates, unfortunately, to keep up with the cost of service. I mean, to keep up with all the other things that are being raised. Now, if we raised it, and this was also something they stated back in the training, is of course in the first year the community will have a sticker shock if we have to raise it by 8%, right? But hey, why are you raising it 8%? But if we gave them a plan and we said, hey, this first year we're going to raise it by X amount, and then the following years it will go down, but it will stay steady, let's say at 3% for the next 3 to 4 years, they won't have any longer a sticker shock, because they know that it's coming and they know it's related, because everything else is going up. And in order for us to sustain our facilities, right, our facilities become an asset. And the better we sustain those facilities, the better of an asset we have and the longer life that it can have. But if we don't, like such as our current time is, we didn't raise any rates. We weren't able to maintain these assets because of those rates. We're not gaining these funds. Not to say that the government doesn't always pay their things, but that doesn't help as well, because we're not able to maintain our assets. Just like a car, you don't take your car to service, then eventually it's going to break down, right? So here I want to say or ask what your discussion on is, what will the legislature be there to back up CUC when we can support ourselves in saying we need to raise the rates? Not because we want to, but because in the long run, it'll help CUC 10 years, 20 years down the line to have better assets, to have better maintained assets.
Thank you. We're kind of pressed with time here, so I'd like to open up the floor for one more question from members of the PCF, and we'll wrap it up from there. Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Yeah, essentially, right? I mean, like I said, if CUC comes out, and not saying that we are, it's just that it's my gut feeling that when the rate increase study comes back, they're going to show that in order for us to probably maintain our systems, right, is that we're going to have to do something. Maybe not in this year, and they recommended that we don't recommend it this year because of COVID, because of everything that we're trying to build back on, right? And that's right. But at some point in time, whether it's next year or a year and a half from now, I believe that that's what it's going to have to come down to, right? You're saying that we need to build our foundation, we need to build strong, we have to have a long-term plan. This is part of that long-term plan to continue to maintaining our systems and making sure that we don't have what we have going on right now, right? So yes.
Just real briefly,
Okay,
Mr.
real
Speaker.
brief.
Yes, correct. I
You
already
can't
answered.
raise
We
rates
can't raise
without
rates.
a functioning PUC.
CPUC.
Yeah,
Yes, that's
Right.
correct.
And
So-
which is something the chairman has raised many times before, right? So
Yes.
yeah, by law, CUC has to make its case and not just say this is what we need to raise
Yes, that is
money
correct.
from, but this is also how we can cut costs.
Yes.
Because there is still a lot of revenue loss happening through both the water system and
Yes,
power.
yeah, that is correct. And again, to push that back, right, is to say that, so yes, like our power system, our water system is, I wouldn't say necessarily 100% failing, but we've put it out on the paper, right? That let's say, for example, we generate 100 million gallons worth of water, but we're only able to bill between 40 to 50%. That's because the other 60 to 50% is being lost somewhere because of our system. Our system leaks. We depend on the public to call into CUC to say, hey, we have a leak here. Can you come and get your guys out here to fix it, right? And then all of that boils down to, do we have the manpower? Do we have all the materials? Do we have these extra pipes that we can afford to go and fix it right away, right? And a lot of the infrastructure money that we get is coming from the federal side. So I mean, if we are able to fix our water side, if we had money to do that, even just reducing our non-revenue water is what they call it, reduce it from 60% down to 30%. That's probably several $1 million savings right there if we had it. But in order to do that, we need infrastructure money to go out and replace these pipes. We need the public to let us know, okay, we have leaks here. There is another component there, but I'll
Yeah.
leave that for a different discussion. But
Thank
that
you, and,
is
and
there.
maybe Chairman Lizama can call you in for a meeting. Okay, so
Always
one more
welcome.
question. Oh, we could just, okay, all right, well, thank you for that, and what a way to close. Thank you, Mr. Guerrero. So thank you very much. I'm sorry about, I think we're over time, but if we could take a group photo before you move over to the governor's office. Thank you very much.